So our founding fathers did not come up with the Constitution. All right, our founding fathers understood the English history, and over a period of 700 years, they took bits and pieces that worked for the people of England, and what they did and what the kings did and all that. And when they studied the 700 years, they put all that into our Constitution. They did a couple other deals like the oath of office and all that to kind of help protect us. But the kings and all that did not do the oath of office. So some people know this, some people don't. But the people in England originally came from Denmark. All right? And they traveled to the land where they called England now, right? But they're still under the authority of the King of Denmark. So, and this was give or take around 1014, 1016 when all this was coming about. All right? But the King of Denmark passed away. So, instead of accepting the king up in Denmark, since they were so far away and whatever new king was going to come up, they decided to make their own king where they reside in England. But it was a little trickier than that, because their king was so far away and did not know these people anymore. So they want to kind of pillage and take and all that like most kings do. And then you have other people coming in and kind of taking and all that. But in all actuality, they were still a very profitable people. And they had like new communities, sprouted out. I can't say towns, but there's communities. You have certain people like, Odessa, and then a little further away is people like in Midland, but they wasn't cities or towns. It was just communities, and they just had them all spread it out. So when this was all going on, the people says, we need somebody to kind of represent us and in our foreign affairs. Since they was not going by what their kings were going by at that time in Denmark, they decided basically what they did is vote Ethelred in to be their king under one condition. All that king had powers to do was foreign affairs, wartime treaty, sell the goods from over the border and all that kind of stuff. But they used to leave the people alone. The people was governed themselves. And that was all the king was supposed to do, just basically foreign affairs. Now, that is what the president's job is to do today. It's only foreign affairs, commerce, foreign affairs, treaties, all that. Congress gave him way too much power, mainly because we could blame the president instead of Congress now. All these people spend a lot of time in Congress. If they took half the responsibility they're supposed to have, half the people wouldn't be in there now. But Congress just kind of brushed it aside and gave it to the president. Now the president takes blame. And it's just become a normal routine now. But in all actuality, in our Constitution, the president has no power over this land whatsoever. He only has power over the seas of foreign affairs. But get back onto the king is Ethelred, which was around 215, 216. And he became the king of the Saxons, which is modern day England. Okay? So he took on that responsibility because he was related to the family and the kings and the princesses and all that in Denmark. So he got ahead and took on that responsibility. So about 30 years later, he had died. But he was kind of getting a little power hungry. You know, he started getting a little money, a little taxes, and all that kind of stuff, which people were not liking that at the time, but they still did it. Edward became king in 1042 until 1066, after Ethelred had died. And he was known as a great king because he always gave to the people. We go back into one thing. How did he give to the people when the king really has no money? He didn't make money and all that unless he had his own farmlands and all that kind of stuff. It's through basically taxes. Okay? So they started doing the taxes already with the new king even. From looking between the glasses and the eyes and all that, you know, that's what happened in a period of time. He, so, you know, actually, he was a good king, but he gave free stuff. Well, what happens when you give free stuff? You depend on the government. And then you start losing your rights. The people sold themselves for free stuff to a king that has no authority to take. Okay? Once again, they did a contract deal saying that to Ethelred that all the powers you have is foreign affairs. You to leave us alone and govern ourselves. But the king Edward, he was just saying you can do this for free and doing that for free. Well, he had no authority to do that. But the people fell into it, and they sold their freedom for free stuff. After 1016, he passed away, but he did not have no children. And Williams was from Belgium. So they did not want a foreign leader. All right? So Edward's right-hand man, which was Hollard Gwenwinson, that's one of them foreign names I cannot pronounce. Godwinson, okay? So he became king. But Williams the first was a conqueror. And you know, since he thinks he had the rightful heir to their land, since it was related to Ethelred, he thought he had every right to go ahead and confiscate that land. So the people said, nope, we're going to have Howard God Wilson to be our king. So they put him in power and being a king. Well, that lasted a few months. January 1066 to October 66. Williams came over and killed him and gone ahead and took the England and the Saxons over. Well, Williams the first knew that the people were pretty upset about this. In order to keep his head, because back in them days, in order to get rid of the king, the king had to lose their heads. So he knew this. So he decided he's going to make some laws up to kind of make the Saxons, the England, to be more secure and safe. So it kind of threw off Williams was what they call a Norman law, which is civil law. Kind of like Game of Thrones, if you don't obey, you lose your head. That's how he ruled, okay? But he knew he would lose his head if the people if he, got too pushy with these people. So he decided, well, he's going to make some things up to make the people feel better. So one of the things he did for the England people to make themselves feel better is he decided to put judges in. Okay? Well, power of the president and the Senate is to put judges in, right? So this king put judges in. Alright? But the catch is, the judges is to do what he says, not what the people say. So they have judges, they'll go to trial, but they'll find the innocent person guilty because the king says to charge him guilty. So it does not do no good to put judges in there if it came from the king. But it sounded good in theory to the people. Number two, he put in civil law, which is basically Norman law. But it was kind of a light deal, okay? It wasn't just instantly cut your head off. It was just more, you're just going to get fined for every little bitty thing you do, which is what we got now. Who knew? Civil law was around in 1066 and gave to the England people, which we have now, which came from England. The civil law that we have now came from England. The United States of America is not supposed to have civil law. That's the reason why it's not in the Constitution. We to govern ourselves. Just like the British people, or English people, did back in 1014. They'd govern themselves. So they did all this, but in order to go to court, what they had to do? Well, they had to appear in court. They had to identify themselves. Let them know what property they're talking about, what their name is, and all that kind of stuff. So that's the third thing. If you want to, have justice in our system, well, you have to give your information. What people didn't dawn on when this came about, and they found out later, they got the information from the courts, and they retaliated against the people. So, to either hang them or forced the people to leave their lands, which when the people left their land, what did that do? Left land vacant. King Williams now owned the land as rightful king. So they left the country, left their lands, abandoned it, and King got ahead and kept the land and bring his other loyal subjects in Holt on the property. So this is how the Belgium got into England. Okay? They also let the people have religion, freedom of religion. But the king is to pick the priest. Alright? That was loyal to the king, not loyal to God. So now we go back into our First Amendment, freedom of religion. Well, the people had freedom of religion before this. Why did the king even put that in there? Well, because now he had control of the preachers. What did the government and the Supreme Courts do? You know, they pretty much took religion out of everything. And it's what the king did, King Williams. You know, this is how England, instead of governing themselves, end up losing their rights. And this is exactly how we're losing our rights today. So, King Williams died in 1087. King Williams II took his rightful spot as the king. Well, he was just as wicked as his father. And, started telling the judges and religious people and religious preachers and all that what they can and cannot do, and if they do this and they do that, off comes their head, as so be the people. But he was king for 13 years. So in 1100, Henry accidentally killed him in a hunting accident. Wink, wink, wink. So Harry the First became king in 1100. But just like his father and all that, he kind of knew that the people knew about this, and there's just no way that he was going to convince the people. So King Harry says, look, my fellow subjects, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to find 3 wise men, and they're going to look at the evidence that's against me and find me innocent or guilty. If I'm guilty, off comes my head. If I'm innocent, I stay king. But the people there kind of knew what he's doing and all that, but it kind of sounded fair. So he let them proceed and found 3 wise men, which is where the Grand Tribunal came from. They basically look at supposedly the evidence and all that kind of stuff. And in today's terms, the way I'm kind of understanding this, it was grand jury, looking at all the evidence. But Henry was just as evil as his father and as his brother. But they making these rules through 700 years, and I'm not going to get too much into this, but it was just giving a basic idea that England was once governed themselves. And these laws that the kings passed and the people accepted and all that kind of stuff happened in 700 years, which led into our contract. But I was kind of giving an idea that this started off, in 1014. So starting off in 1014, the history began, and Congress, over that 700 years between 1014, 1016, somewhere in there, until our Independence Day, until around 1776 and all that. They gathered up all the histories of the 700 years, and they decided to put it in our contract, our Constitution. So all the things that we have in our Constitution really came from 700 years of the English people and their kings. The only thing we did really different in a lot of ways is that the judge is supposed to hold the oath of office. All the government officials are supposed to hold the office to uphold the Constitution. In England, they did not have no Constitution, no oath. They have promises what they will not do. What Henry called it was the 1100 Charter of Liberty. The people have the right to resist the king if the king is found guilty. This is where we get in our Constitution, we had the right to resist our president, our Congress, our Senate, if they're operating in bad behavior. Now, to remind you guys, this was, he died in, he became king in 1100 and died in 1135. And I'm not going to go too much further than that. But I just kind of get an idea. This is where England did the 1100 Charter of Liberty. Basically telling the people they have the right to resist the kings when he's not operating in good behavior. Some of the videos I've probably put out there, and I don't remember if I did YouTube, but Facebook I did, that judges, and it don't matter, the Supreme Court don't have lifetime appointments. If they operate in bad behavior, the Senate can pull them out. Now, because we had this bar union thing, apparently it has to go through the process of that and all that anymore. But that's not in the Constitution. The Constitution does not have bar unions. It's supposed to be the Senate. Say, hey, you operating in bad behavior? You're out of here, buddy. You're dismissed from your duties. And they'll pick another judge to replace. It was that simple. The government made it harder with this bar unions and lawyers and all this and all that. And in a lot of ways, we just really need to get rid of the bar unions, y'all. at least the bar unions had to operate in good behavior. If they see them out of control, then they need to really get in there and nip it in the butt. But bar unions don't care. Just like all other unions, they demand money from the judges, lawyers, and all that. So when you walk in court, it's conflict of interest. That's the reason why we had counsel. Counsel and lawyers at one time was two different things. When you went to court, you had a person who knew the law, but told you and remind you that, hey, you tell them about this and tell them about this, and then you still speak up. But now lawyers just take over the courtroom and you sit there twiddling your thumbs. And right now with civil law and all that kind of stuff, which is unconstitutional, it is hard to win in court because there's so many laws. Unconstitutional laws, if that. But because it's civil law, they decided to wrap it in there. So I think we need to dismantle the bar union, which I really don't think bar unions are unconstitutional. I haven't really dug into it. They're probably allowed to be there. But the one thing I do know beyond a shadow of doubt is the judge is not supposed to go by the bar union. And bar unions don't get to investigate them. Our senators pull them out. And the ones we have in our county and all that kind of stuff that we vote for, we vote them out. It's not the bar union's job whatsoever. But lawyers and bar unions and judges twisted it all up, and now we're raised thinking that the judges and lawyers have all this power they really do not have. And that's from the president all the way down to our Congress, to our mayors and all them. Every one of them has been lied to and grew up the same way we have. We've been misled. We have not been taught the true history of our Constitution. And they need to go back in school and relearn where our Constitution came from, which 700 years of treaties and all that between the people and the kings of England, and that's where the Constitution came from. The main purpose of the oath of office is to operate in good behavior. But I may do some more. Obviously, there's a couple more kings between 1135 and up. I'll just see how this plays out. I was bored to death. It was a little bit rainy earlier, and I was just taking a break and relaxing. But get a chance, y'all. Study that up. Study the history of, the king Ethelred. How he became a king. Edwards. And Williams the First, the Conqueror, how he became the king of England from Belgium. So, and how this got all intertwined, I think, and I may be wrong, but the United States made an agreement in 1886 with King George. All right? He gets to run the United States. We have control of the United States. Got to check in the history of that. So, when we say the United States, we're under Queen Elizabeth authority. And I have no idea why we compromised like that. And I have no idea why it's on paper and all that. That was just plain out silly at that time. So, the United States belonged to England. The United States belonged to we the people. So when you say our country, we are Americans, you got to be specific. We are the United States of Americans. Because England has control of the United States of America. And that's where civil law came in. From England, from the England lawyers that come onto our land. And I can't remember what year it was, but it was around Lincoln when lawyers got mad because they were supposed to lose their title and not be no longer lawyers. So they went out and they burned all the courthouses, which I believe that was within the Second War against England. Like I said, I study so much. Sometimes I get a little confused on the dates and times and all that, especially when I just decide I'm bored and blur stuff out. But yeah, verify what I say. Don't bank on people's words. You got to study history. We cannot tell the future unless we understand our past. If we keep doing a circle and keep doing the same thing over and over and over, then we will never have a prosperous future. We're just going to be more enslaved, and more enslaved because we do not understand our history and the correct history. But I'm going to let you guys go on this. It's been 30 minutes. It stretched out a little longer than I wanted. But, yep. Just in case you guys want to write it down. Ethelred was the first king of England. Then it was Edward. Then it was Hollard Godwinson, Godwinson, however you pronounce that. He was only a couple of months, about 6 months, I guess, he was a king for. Williams the Conqueror sent the army, went to war, killed him, became king from Belgium. So it's just kind of weird when you sit and look at all the histories and all that. I had no idea England people actually came from Denmark. I had no idea. And I had no idea that, that Denmark had control of the England people because they was Saxons from Denmark. And then Belgium came in there and confiscated that country. And anyway, this is how we started our Constitution, is by this history here. And later on, I may do another video on this, but we'll see. And like I said, I'm not just a cop watcher or this, that, here, and there. I'm a little bit of everything, and if I think it's interesting, I'm going to post it and see what happens. But until then, we the Diesel. We're, Diesel for we the people. We're out of here.